Sawadee Cup everyone, and welcome back to the Muay Thai Basics video series. This video will be lesson number 2, where we'll be covering some targets to kick and a common defense called the shield, aka knee check. Before we get into it though, if you find value in this video, please consider leaving a like, hit that subscribe button, and turn the notifications on. With that out of the way, let's get started. All right, a basic or crude understanding of the anatomy of the shin. The tibia, or the shin bone, is actually triangular shaped like that. And if this was my right shin, looking from a top down, if this was my knee, basically the calf muscle would be wrapping around like this on the shape, around the shape of my tibia or my shin bone. This is actually really important to know because that corner right there is what we're going to be using when we're doing our kicking. So if you take a look here, this is my tibia here. It's exposed. This is the flat section. And if I just press in a little bit, you'll see the top corner right there, all the way down. And this would be the muscles, like the calf that helps wrap around all of that. So if I take the triangular shape of my shin and move it along the path of how I'm doing the round kick, you can see that the top of the triangle will go into the target. Any more than doing this and I rotate over, I'm going to start hitting with the muscles, which would be less effective than trying to use the shin bone itself. So now that we know that, let's take a look at a few targets. The first one's right here, about 2-3 inches above the knee. And then the second one is about 2-3 inches below the hip bone. Now everything else in between is good, but these two targets are more precise when we're throwing the round kick. Now the third target here will be on the outside part of the calf, just above the ankle. And the last one that we're going to talk about right now is above the elbow. A lot of times when we were talking about the round kick, instead of it going upwards, because then I would be kicking the elbow, we wanted to go around just like in the previous lesson. And from here, the true target would be through the arm into the floating rib, okay, into the floating rib. Now, why did I say above the elbow? Because from time to time, an opponent who has a pretty good guard, maybe at the beginning of the fight, this is going to be here. And to wear down the guard, we here at Impact like to call it shield breaking. So as I continue to hit above the elbow, sometimes we get the response where the arm starts to get weak and it starts opening this up. It makes it a little bit easier to go above. Or sometimes they start to open this up, trying to use their elbow as a form of blocking, which opens up the true target, which is the floating rib. So let's take a look here when I'm doing the targeting. My feet are on the same line as my partner on the train tracks, rather than being on a skateboard or a tight wire. I take a step out and I do all of my motions that we did earlier in the previous lesson. And then I use the anatomy of my shin bone to hit the target. So number 1, number 2. Number 3 is if he lifts his leg up because he's doing a shield, which we'll cover here in a second. Number 3 will be here, right on the calf area above the ankle. And then number 4 is if he tightens up and I go above the elbow. Okay. If he happens to flare it out, then I get a free shot towards the floating rib. Okay, so from this angle, target number 1, target number 2, target number 3 is if he shields, and then number 4 if he's tight on his cover. Now there is other targeting like the inside part of the leg, we've got the neck or the head, but we're going to cover that in a future lesson. But for right now, let's take a look at the defensive maneuver of the round kick. So if I come a little bit closer to the camera, my lead leg here, all it's going to do is going to lift up, and my elbow and my knee are going to overlap. Elbow being on the outside like this, okay? Now, my hand is going to go up towards my temple, and I'm going to bring this in as tight as I can without compromising my balance. So what happens is if I go like this and I'm too tight, you can see that I'm too vertical, and if he kicks while I'm like that, I end up turning like this. And we were talking about like the outside part of the shin where you have muscles here. He gets a cleaner shot on me. So what I'll need to do is take my knee and then point it outwards. Also, you'll notice that my toes are going to be pointed up rather than down, okay? So if he's going here, let's turn this way a little bit. You'll notice that if I'm straight here like this, and my knee is going to be outward. If I am straight, you can see where it connects to his shin, right here. But if I go further out, that means like if I take your leg, the contact between his kick and my shield would then travel down more towards his foot or his ankle. This will be very good for me, not so good for my opponent. So I make sure that my knee is outward, my toes are up, and I have the overlap of my elbow and knee. Again. Now, also I was talking about how tight the elbow is. If it's outward, and I do have a strong overlap of the knee and the elbow, you'll notice that there's a bridge here. See the bridge? And if my opponent here, I know that he's a very hard kicker. If he goes up and I create that bridge, it runs the risk of this arm being broken through that kick. And if you take a look at a few YouTube videos that are out there, you may find one where you'll see the forearm actually break. So to avoid that risk, we're going to bring it in a little bit more. So my body becomes a little bit more substance behind, not preventing fully, but avoiding the risk of it breaking. So when I shield now, it should look like a tighter bond here. Okay, so from the sideways view, here. Okay, so if he kicks, boom. And that would be my shield. Now, there was also known as, right, we have like it called the knee check. Usually that you'll see that when you see a kicker go low and they just point the knee at it like that. And again, you may find some YouTube videos out there where the knee check takes place and then the tibia or their shin bone actually breaks. Now, it's a very good block, but there are some debates on whether you just do the knee check or do the full shield, right? Where this gap here is covered. Now, if I do the knee check by itself, you can see that there's a gap there. And I wouldn't want to bring my body down because now my head is closer to his kick. So if I stand up straight and I only do the knee check and he goes, I may get it. He may see me not covering the seam line, so then he might try again, and then he gets a good target scoring for him. So it's kind of a give and take depending on what's going on in the dynamics of the fight. But for us, as a good basic, always practice the overlap of the elbow and the knee. Okay? Now, a little bit of sport. If he kicks and I'm solid, he doesn't get a score. If he kicks and then I'm off balance, it's actually counted as a score even if I block it. So when we practice, we want to be steady on the recovery.